All right, today we're looking at wetland environments. This can be found in your textbook on page 28 all the way to 33. And on these pages, we're going to be looking at how wetlands are important to our environment, threats that exist to them, and then we're going to even look at a specific wetland that's in our country in Florida called the Everglades. So as we do this, you can go on to RenWeb under Resources for Science, and you can actually download the note sheets for this lesson. It's going to be for 2 days, Monday and Tuesday. And if you don't have printer capabilities, you can also take a notebook or a piece of paper and also take notes that way. So go ahead and maybe pause the video right now and make sure you have notes that you can use for this lesson. All right, hopefully you have that now. And so as we continue, I'm going to share my screen with you, and we're going to go through the slides that I've also put up on RenWeb for you that you can look at and you can see. So today we're going to look at wetlands, and as you look at this diagram, you can see how wetlands work. You can see that usually wetlands lay in low-lying areas, and this low-lying areas usually are going to be covered with a shallow layer of water. Now this water can be there for all of the year in some wetlands, and then in some wetlands in the summer when it gets really warm, they can actually dry up. And you can see here that there's different plant life that are going to have really good roots that are going to absorb bacteria and other contaminants. You're going to also see those plants provide a habitat that's critical for certain animals to live there. Those roots are also going to help sediment and silt and mud from seeping down the river into a larger body of water like a stream or a lake or a pond. And it also is going to restore the water and filter it for us. So as we begin today and tomorrow, again, we're going to identify common types of wetlands, identify human activities that threaten the Florida Everglades, and we're also going to look at how important functions that wetlands serve, explain how the important functions that wetlands serve. So as we do this, we're going to start actually with an experiment. Now you're welcome to do this experiment at home. Here are all the ingredients, supplies you need, and this is the question we're going to ask in this experiment. Which sponge, wet or dry, will absorb the water faster? We're learning about wetland environments today. We're going to look at 3 types of freshwater wetlands and 2 types of saltwater wetlands. And as we do that, we're going to look at how humans can impact those wetlands and how we as humans can also utilize wetlands by enjoying the type of biodiversity they offer, along with allowing them to control floods and waters. And then we will also look at explaining the functions that wetlands can serve for all the different types of animals that live there. So as we do that, we're going to start with an experiment. I have 2 sponges here, and you guys can do this at home if you'd like, and that will allow you to even see this more firsthand and just on a video. All you need is just 2 plain sponges. The first one you want to just dip in water. So if you dip it in water, you get it pretty wet. All right, and then you want to just completely squeeze it out as much as you can so that it still has water in it, but it's not soaking, it's not dripping at all. See that? Okay, so that's the first sponge. And then leave the other sponge completely dry. So you need to make sure that it's like air dried for at least probably 24 hours, but then it would be good to go. So the experiment is that I want you to make a prediction which of these sponges, the one that has water in it or the one that is completely dry with no drops of water in it, which one, when I pour water onto them, will actually have the water absorb quicker. Now, most of you might have an idea Okay, thinking about if I'm going to pour this water onto the sponge, which one will absorb the water the most? So I want you to be thinking about properties of water. There's lots of different properties of water we studied. We can look at the polar structure of water and how it allows capillary action, surface tension, specific heat, and it's a universal solvent. Those are the 4 properties of water, but which of those properties can help us maybe answer this question with a scientific mind? So pause the video right now and make your own investigation, your own prediction. You can even try the experiment on your own. All right, welcome back. Hopefully you did the experiment. If not, I'm going to do it for you here. All right, so I'm going to just push this down so you can see both sponges. All right, this one has been soaked with water. This one is completely dry. All right, so I'm going to pour it on the dry one first. So watch as I do that. Let's see, absorbing the water pretty well. Kind of splashing off a little bit. All right. And this one, you can watch it. This is the one that had water already in it. You can see this one, if you looked closely, this one absorbed the water a lot quicker. This one, the water bounced off. Because remember, water has the property that is polar, which means it wants to stick to each of the different types of molecules. So the water molecules are sticking to the other water molecules and they connect together really quickly. So this is like our wetland, this sponge. It can collect water and soak it up pretty easily, and that's why we need wetlands in our whole entire environment, because they're able to soak up water. If we had taken all the wetlands out of our whole entire environment, we would have flooding everywhere. Our houses would be flooded. So we actually have a lot of wetlands that are near us in DuPage County, and we're all right, now that experiment is over, we're going to look at all the different types of wetlands that exist in our world. So again, this note sheet is on RenWeb under Resource tab, or again, you can take it and just write this down on a fresh piece of paper or in your green notebooks. So a wetland is defined as a land area that's covered over shallow layers of water during some or all of the year. Now we're going to look at 2 types of wetlands. We're going to look at freshwater wetlands, and we're going to look at coastal wetlands. So we're going to start over at freshwater. Okay, so think about freshwater. You're going to see that that is only water that is freshwater that you and I you can drink, you can use for recreational purposes, for farming. And this type of wetland is very similar to the wetlands that you visited if you were at our school in 5th grade. You went to Lincoln Marsh. We're going to look at that first wetland today. So the first wetland is a marsh. All right, so these, think about when you've been to Lincoln Marsh, some of the characteristics. You might remember like tall grasses. You might even remember seeing cattails. The water's pretty shallow, even sometimes a little murky at the bottom. I'm going to show you some pictures of a wetland. Okay, so this is kind of like a marsh. These pictures here, you can see this is actually Lincoln Marsh. There's a bridge. If you walk into Lincoln Marsh, you can actually see this green algae. You can walk all the way into kind of the water, the low-lying area. This is also Lincoln Marsh here, down this image here. And these are cattails that many of us have seen. The ancient Indians actually used to, the American Indians, I mean, used to take these cattails and dry them out, and they would dry out those reeds through the winter, and then they would use them to create their own mats to lay on and sit on and sleep on. So these are marshes. That's one type of wetland that we could see covering shallow water or a stream. We utilize this type of wetland a lot in Illinois. especially in DuPage County, there are a lot of marshes that control floodplains. If we didn't have these marshes, if we built where these marshes were, our houses get flooded a lot more, and that would not be a good situation. All right, so going back to your note page, we're going to look at another type of freshwater wetland called a swamp. Now, swamps are a little bit different. They're found more in warm, humid climates, so we wouldn't have any swamps here in Illinois, but you would find these down in Florida. My sister lives in Florida, and I always say she lives in swampland, USA. That's just kind of a joke I have with her because she always has flooding. She always gets water in her house. They don't have basements down there because the water would just flood into their basements because they're really at sea level down in Florida, and so they have a lot of swamps. But these swamps are different than a marsh because they have trees and shrubs actually growing throughout the wetland. It kind of almost looks like a forest, but it's flooded. So let me show you some pictures of this. All right, so if you've been to the Everglades down in Florida, you have seen something like this, where you have these trees that are growing inside the swamp. You can even see here the bushes. They also have tall grasses too. This is again going to be found in a warm, humid area where trees are growing quickly because they have so much access to water. Next wetland is a bog. Now, bogs we're probably not very familiar with. Maybe if you've seen Lord of the Rings, the video, they actually have, you actually see them walking through a bog in one of the scenes, and the water's like really, really mucky. Because this is found in northern, cooler areas, farther north than where we live. So we don't really have bogs near us. But this water is not water that you would want to drink, and you're not going to find the type of wildlife we see in marshes or swamps in a bog because the bogs have acidic water. Acidity, think about lemon juice. If you've ever drank like straight lemon, it's really tart, like almost burns your throat. That's this kind of water. It's very acidic. Not many plants can grow. They say usually it's mosses and lichen are the only plants that can really grow in this type of environment. And they'll thrive, the mosses and lichen. So here's a picture of some bogs. You can see here, like it's gonna be really, all these wetlands, like you couldn't really walk on this. It'd be really squishy. You'd be probably sinking in the ground in most of these type of wetlands we're studying. Again, these are all freshwater wetlands. So now we're going to look at two other types of wetlands. The next one we're going to look at is the coastal. So think about coast. We know this to be salt water, right? Near the coast, you're going to, oops, trying to draw here. It says salt. You can see it. Oh, that's really bad. It'd be easier for me just to delete that and write salt. So saltwater marshes are the type of marshes that are similar to the freshwater, but they're going to have more of salt water in them, but they're also going to have like a rich, muddy bottom to them. They're also going to have tall, strong grasses, just like the marshes. And I'm going to show you some pictures of those. So they kind of look similar to the marsh that we have here in DuPage County, but again, they're going to have salt water is going to be part of that environment. And the last one is a mangrove trees, and these are amazing. If you ever get to go down to Florida to the Everglades, you need to check out the mangrove forests. It's extraordinary. The images I'm going to show you do not do them justice. These are where short trees with like really thick, tangly roots exist. They're found usually along the southeast US coast, and they're going to look like this. All right, so some of you have been in Everglades, you've taken a boat through it. You can see these tangly roots, and this is where animals and fish are going to have their habitats, so they can be protected from predators inside those roots. But these roots are all coming up out of the water even creating more of a habitat there, which is pretty extraordinary. You can look at this one here too, and the one above here. So mangrove forests, pretty amazing. Again,